Let me get started. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the next installment of Meet the Leaders. I am your host, Jerry McPherson. Now, before we get started, I need a little bit of help from all of those out in the audience. Please like, comment, share. Let the world know that you're with us. We got a phenomenal broadcast ahead of us. We got some phenomenal panelists, some subject matter experts here to give you the information that you need to make better informed decisions. Tonight's topic will be the vaccine disparity. Please like, comment, share, let the world know that you are with us. We'll be getting started in just a moment. If you are familiar with this broadcast, you know you are a part of it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. You will have the opportunity to get your questions asked directly by our experts. Again, like, comment, share, let the world know that you are with us. If you are out in the audience, tell us where you are tuning in from, what city, what state, what part of the valley are you from, are you in? We want to know where are all of our viewers tuning in from. Again, we have a group of panelists here to give you the most informed information regarding the COVID-19 vaccine and answering all of your questions. So again, like, comment, share, let the world know that you are with us. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And as I mentioned, my name is Jerry McPherson, Director of Economic Empowerment for the Greater Phoenix Urban League. Tonight's program is an important one. For the past 15 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged our communities. Many of us have lost friends, family, jobs, peace of mind, connections with loved ones, and a lot of the economic advancement we fought so hard to obtain. We previously talked about COVID-19 on this program. First, discussing the adjustments needed to our way of life and ramping up testing to get this virus under control. We then took a look at COVID and the classroom, discussing how the virus was impacting some of the most vulnerable citizens, our children. We were effectively told three things needed to happen in order to get this virus under control. Number one, for all of us to follow CDC guidelines. This includes social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands, and staying sanitized. Number two, get tested. The most surest way to ensure that you're not passing along the virus is knowing you have it. And number three was the creation and distribution of a vaccine. Tonight, we will focus on that vaccine with some of the most qualified experts and community leaders that we have. We're here to answer all of your questions, dispel the rumors, and provide the resources you need to stay safe. Tonight's guest panelists include Dr. Chris Crist, Director for the Arizona Department of Health Services, Dr. Dwayne Wooten, Pediatrician with Wooten Healthcare, Dr. Art Mollen, Medical Director with the Mullen Clinic, Dr. Dionne Mills, Obstetrician and Gynecologist with Banner Health Thunderbird, Alan A.P. Powell, founder of Herozona Foundation, Incorporated, and last but not least, Ashlee Atkins, President of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals. Again, before we get started, I have to ask you one last time, like, comment, share, let the world know that you're with us. The more people to the broadcast, the better this information will be disseminated throughout our community. This is information that people need to know, hearing from experts that have the information. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce the President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, President George Dean.
Good afternoon. I'm George Dean, the President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, and welcome to this month's edition of Meet the Leaders, our Urban League forum that we bring to you on a monthly basis. And tonight we have a very, very important topic that we're going to be talking about, the vaccine disparity and so forth. As Jerry said earlier, the COVID-19 has been with us now for over 18 months, and it has taken over 500,000 lives and has changed the lives of so many people in business and industry. In fact, the whole society has been affected not only here in the United States, but globally as well. But we do have the vaccine now, and tonight we're going to spend our time talking about the vaccine. And for those who have been reluctant to get the vaccine to now, first of all, you need to know that eligibility for the COVID-19 vaccine is open for all, and a small percentage of Black and Browns are being vaccinated. Black people are being hospitalized almost 3 times more than white people, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. African Americans are at a higher risk of getting COVID-19 than other groups. Income, education, healthcare access, and mistrust is just a few of the factors that prevent Black and Brown communities from getting the vaccine, causing them to become sicker. Economic disparities play a big role in why Black and Brown people are being vaccinated at a lower rate. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the national poverty rate for Black households stood at 18.9% compared to 7.3% for white households. Economic differences can be seen in the lack of transportation in predominantly Black neighborhoods or internet and phone services needed to schedule and make appointments. These are some of the things that have caused the vaccine to not get in our communities to the extent we want it to. And tonight we are going to address that problem. We are very pleased and very thankful for the fact that we have Dr. Chris Crist, the director of the Arizona Department of Health Services, as one of our guests this evening program. Also, a Phoenix legend, Dr. Dwayne Wooten of the Wooten Healthcare, Dr. Mollen of the medical director for the Mullen Clinic, Dr. Dionne Mills, OBGYN Banner Health, A.P. Powell, the founder of the Herozona Foundation and one that has been working tirelessly to get more people in our communities vaccinated, Ashlee Atkins, the president of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals. It's a good program. I beg you to pay attention, listen closely to what they have to say. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated as soon as you can. And Jerry, I'll turn it back to you let's hear from the experts.
Thank you once again, President Dean, for your tireless leadership over the years to the Greater Phoenix community. Without further ado, I would like to now introduce Dr. Chris Crist, Director for the Arizona Department of Health. Dr. Crist, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So if you can, just take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience and let the audience know who they have before them this evening.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Dr. Chris Crist. I'm the director of the Arizona Department of Health Services, which is the state's public health system. And so we work very closely with our local county health departments to implement different public health things such as vaccination, testing, the WIC program. We license hospitals and outpatient treatment centers. There's a whole host of activities that we do. I have been the director there for almost 6 years. And grew up in Arizona. I have a love for all things Arizona, and I have 3 children who are school-age children who unfortunately have a mom who's very invested in public health, and so get lots of vaccines and are told to eat healthy and all kinds of physical activity and stuff. But I'm proud to be here, and I'm really glad that I get to talk to you about vaccines today.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say unfortunate for that. I would say fortunately, if it's coming from mom to doc, then it must be good information that they're receiving. So your agency works in a lot of different areas. You mentioned not only the vaccine, but health and human services overall, the WIC program, I believe that was one of the areas that you mentioned. But we know over the past 15 months, your agency has been working tirelessly in respect to the COVID-19 vaccine. So if you can just take some time and tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing in that area.
Yeah, so since the very first case back in January of 2020, we have been working 24/7 on the COVID-19 response. And so that has involved, following up with all cases, doing contact tracing, so contacting those that have come down with COVID so that we can identify potential contacts and talk to them before they can spread it further. We've also been coordinating testing statewide, both with PCR and now the antigen tests. And we've been displaying the data on a real-time dashboard that you can find at azhealth.gov. As we've been doing that, we've been working on coming up with making sure that the treatments are available, that our hospitals have appropriate capacity to treat everybody who needs to be treated. We've been working on ways to make sure that our hospitals don't get overloaded, such as implementing the Arizona Surge Line, developing long-term care contracts so that people who don't need to be in the hospital any longer have a place to go where they can still receive the appropriate level of care, but freeing up that acute care bed for others that may need it as well. And then since December, when the first COVID vaccine became available, we have been working on getting that out as far and wide as we can. So there are currently 3 approved vaccines in the United States. There's the Pfizer, the Moderna, both of those require 2 doses, and then the Johnson & Johnson. So we've been working with our county health departments who work directly with the communities to get vaccine out in community-based vaccination sites. And we've been focusing at the state level on allocating the vaccines to those county health departments, but then also managing the 7 state operated vaccination pods. So those are the big mass vaccination centers at what used to be State Farm, but is now Gila River Arena, Desert Financial Arena, Westworld, Dexcom, and then Tucson, Yuma, and Flagstaff. And so as of today, we've vaccinated statewide over 3 million Arizonans. We've administered over 5 million doses in total. And have almost 2.5 million Arizonans fully vaccinated. So all of that is very, very promising. But we know in order to return back to some level of normalcy, we need to have as many Arizonans vaccinated as possible, because that's what's going to stop transmission in our communities. Because we know there's not a vaccine that's 100% foolproof. And so the more people we can get vaccinated, the less chances we have of people coming down with COVID-19.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chris. And you mentioned a website earlier. You said azhealth.gov.
Yes. So our website is azhealth.gov. You can then, on our home screen, you can find vaccines, you can find testing locations, and you can visit the dashboard.
Got it. We just wanted to make sure we take the opportunity to share that link with our audience so they can take immediate action to learn about the resources and where to get tested and answer some of the questions, but don't leave, because we got the answers for you today. You also mentioned that, I believe you said 3 million people vaccinated, 5 million doses issued, and 2.5 million people completely vaccinated, if my memory serves me correct. I did want to ask you to dig a little bit deeper into the numbers and get out there where we stand with the COVID infections. Unfortunately, the death rate where it stands currently. And again, you mentioned the vaccinations already, so maybe we can look at the infections and the death rate where it currently stands.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've had cases since January of 2020, and we've had 2 surges, one that was in the summer, and then a really significant surge that started in October, November, peaked at the end of December, beginning of January, and has gone down. Since that first week in January, we have seen a significant decrease in the number of cases here in Arizona that we see each day and each week. We've had over 800,000 cases in Arizona, and we've had over 17,000 deaths. What we have been seeing since the end of March is a leveling off of our cases, our hospitalizations, and our deaths. So we're seeing less cases. We're not seeing them continue to go down. They've kind of plateaued over the last few weeks. Some of the things that we watch are the number of cases per day. the number of deaths, the number of people who are hospitalized and how many of those beds are taken, and then the percent positivity, which is an indicator of community transmission. And what we've seen at the end of March is that our cases have been between 500 and 1,000 per day that are newly reported. We see anywhere from 0 to 50 deaths reported per day. Those usually lag several weeks behind because it takes a while for us to get that death data. What we are seeing is that our percent positivity is staying relatively stable, around 5%. And so as we watch that percent positivity, if it goes up, it tells us that the transmission is starting to increase in the community. And if it goes down, it means it's less circulating in our community. And that's been around 5% since about the end of March. We do look at our hospital beds, so the number of ICU beds and med-surg beds that are being taken, and those have remained relatively stable as well. Not huge increases in the number of beds, but not huge decreases either, but
right.
Significantly lower than where it was in January.
Certainly, and that is great news. And make no mistake, one death that can be prevented is one death too many. But the idea or the reality that the numbers are plateauing, that gives us comfort, that gives us some encouragement that this vaccine is being taken seriously and getting under control. But by no means that should not lend a message that we should let up, that we should take anything easy. And I know with the weather getting better, particularly here in Arizona, quickly approaching 100 degrees, we may want to just run outside and get back to the old way of life. But we got to maintain the precautions that we had leading up to this.
Yes.
So I guess I know we got you for just a few more moments, but wanted to ask you one more question. What needs to be done to help Arizona get over this hurdle and get back to pre-COVID way of life, if that's even possible?
So what we need is to get as many Arizonans vaccinated as possible. And so the vaccine is what's going to help us return to more of a normal life with COVID. We anticipate that COVID's going to be around. It's going to become something probably like flu or another respiratory virus that we see because it's highly transmissible. However, what we've seen is that the vaccines in both the clinical trials and in the real world are very, very effective at preventing deaths and preventing hospitalizations, which is very, very good. We know that those that have been fully vaccinated, so that means 2 doses of the Moderna or the Pfizer followed by 2 weeks after that second dose, or 2 weeks after your first dose of Johnson & Johnson, is when you have full protection against COVID-19. The data has shown that it is, again, very effective. It's very safe. It reduces your chances of being hospitalized or dying from COVID, and it is free. What we're seeing, though, is a decrease in the number of people who want to get vaccinated. So initially, there was a lot of demand, and we had very little vaccine. Now we have lots of vaccine and lots of availability. You can find it at one of the state sites. You can find it at the pharmacy. You can find it at your community health center, as well as more and more doctors' offices. And then community-based pop-up events. So events in the community, like at South Mountain Community College. I know that we've been working with AP and Equality Health on getting those community sites as well. A lot of the pharmacies and the grocery stores also have it now. And anybody who's 16 and older who wants to get vaccinated can get vaccinated. You can walk into any state site, you can get same day appointments, and you can walk into any pharmacy at this point. But that's really what's going to get us to return to normal.
Dr. Crist, we thank you so much for the information, and we greatly appreciate the work that you're doing with Arizona Department of Health. You had a tough task over these past 15 months, and I commend you on the work that you're doing. And I'm sure all of our Arizona are grateful for the work that you and your team have been putting forward over the past 15 months to try to get this under control.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Crist, Director for the Arizona Department of Health. Sooner or later, I'm gonna get that to roll off my tongue the way it's supposed to. But we'll go ahead and move forward into our panel discussion in just a moment. But again, if you are tuning in, we greatly appreciate you spending your evening with us. Please like, comment, share, let the world know that you're with us. The more you like it, the more you comment, the more you share it, the more people that gets to this broadcast, the more people who receive this information that we are giving out this evening. Next, I would like to begin introducing our panelists who will be sharing their expertise with you this evening. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Dwayne Wooten, Pediatrician for Wooten Healthcare. Dr. Wooten, welcome to the broadcast.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to you, Jerry. Yes, I am Dr. Dwayne Wooten, and I am a pediatrician here. Been doing this for almost 4 decades now, hard to believe. And yes, we've been on the front lines with regards to vaccinations, period, let alone the COVID vaccine. We've seen significant disparity in our community, which is what my emphasis is that people of brown hues to their skin, brown and black people in particular in Maricopa County and in Arizona, are disproportionately affected by COVID, and it's a tragedy to me. You know, I spent a great deal of my life telling people how important it is to get vaccinations of all kinds, and now we're just having to do it again. But I am willing to do that. I sometimes, we'll get into why it's such a difficult task. I am, again, a pediatrician here. I've been in Phoenix, Arizona, practicing for almost 4 decades. Like I said earlier, I'm born and raised in Phoenix. I'm a true native. I went to Dunbar Elementary School, which, believe it or not, is right across the street from where I set my practice up almost 38 years ago. And I went to Maryville High School. I went to Northwestern University at the ripe old age of 16. And I still have the record of being the youngest physician in the history of the state of Arizona. When I started medical school, I was just barely 19, and I finished in 3.5 years. So that's my background. I've been practicing pediatrics since that time. I was trained at the Phoenix Hospital's affiliated pediatric program, which was well before Phoenix Children's Hospital became my hospital. And I actually had the pleasure of serving on the foundation board of that hospital for its first 20 years. I helped develop that hospital, if you will. So there's a little signature to me in that hospital on the 6th floor. And that's my baby, if you will. I enjoy taking care of babies all the way up to 21, and then I kick them out, God willing. And I'm willing to answer all your questions that come up. And I take it as a pleasure to be here this evening to do this very important education. Thanks.
Now, Dr. Wooten, I'm sorry, you just got to pause for a moment. President Dean mentioned it earlier and said you were a legend. I didn't understand the gravity of that when he said it, but you are the youngest physician in the state of Arizona at age 22. Is that accurate?
Right. When I became a physician, I was the youngest in the history of the state. And I think I still have that record. I know one other cat came in at about just at 20, but he didn't beat my record. So, and you know, it has a lot of history by that. I know George knows that. When I became a medical student at the University of Arizona, I was the first African-American in the entire state studying medicine in 8 years and the third ever. So the first one was 1967. So that just tells you what my history has been like here in the state of Arizona. And boy, do I have stories to tell, but that's for another day.
And I will take you up on that offer, although you didn't actually give me an invitation for it, but I look forward to hearing some of those stories in due time.
Sure.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Dionne Mills, Obstetrician and Gynecologist with Banner Health Thunderbird. Welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Mills.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with Greater Phoenix Urban League. Yeah, my name is Dr. Mills. I'm a board certified obstetrician gynecologist. I've been practicing medicine for about 12 years. I have 3 wonderful children, all elementary school age, so affected by the pandemic on multiple fronts. My passion is just empowerment through education and making sure that people can make sound medical decisions for themselves by way of having good education about how the body works and about what is actually going on with them so that they can really advocate for themselves and make good medical decisions. So any opportunity that I have to speak to the public, I take that opportunity. So hopefully today we can address any concerns, we can dispel as many myths as possible and make sure to really get people comfortable with, getting the vaccine, because as an OBGYN, I see patients that are extremely vulnerable. I see patients that come with a 2-for-1 deal 2 patients in one, and we've definitely seen the devastating effects of COVID-19 on pregnant women. So this is definitely something that's important to me. I was a volunteer at one of the Banner hospitals, Mesa Lutheran, before it became Banner Gateway at 14, and then grew up and became a physician, came back to Arizona, originally from Trinidad, but I definitely have a long history with Arizona since I moved here when I was 10. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you guys today.
And Dr. Mills, we thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. I had the opportunity to speak to you a couple of times leading up to this broadcast, and I can tell the audience was definitely excited, particularly given her expertise as it pertains to women's health. So we definitely look forward to diving into that and sharing that very important information for our audience members. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Art Mollen, Medical Director with Mullen Clinic.
Well, thank you very much, Greater Phoenix Urban League, for inviting me. I really appreciate participating. I'll give you a little background of mine, probably not as historic or iconic as Dr. Wooten's, but I was born, raised, educated in Philadelphia. Went to Temple University and then the Philadelphia College of Medicine. I came out to Arizona actually as a physician. I was one of the last groups of physicians to have the dubious honor of being drafted during the tail end of the Vietnam War. So I served at Luke Air Force Base as a captain, active duty for several years, and was actually chief of allergy and immunizations, which was quite interesting to have that in my background because back in the late 80s, I worked in conjunction with the Maricopa County Health Department to start the largest mass immunization influenza program in the United States. And over a period of 25 years, we had the opportunity to actually immunize about 10 million patients during that particular time. So I'm very familiar with the value of immunizations and also with the any potential side effects that you get from the immunizations, which is actually few and far between, both with influenza and certainly with COVID-19. We've been doing clinics, pop-up clinics in Arizona. We were doing quite a few pop-up clinics in the North Scottsdale area. And we were immunizing about 1,500 people a day in a walk-through clinic, which I believe is probably the most efficacious way to deliver the immunizations. We were very successful with that, and we continue to do pop-up clinics, and we're doing those at 668 North 44th Street from 7:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. People are more than welcome to participate and come by. They do not need an appointment. It's a walk-in clinic, and so I think it's made it very, very accessible for most people. We're also doing on the weekend clinics at the Phoenix Convention Center, so that's another opportunity for people to get immunizations from 8 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. And some of the clinics are even going to 8 p.m., so you'd have to check with the convention center. I cannot underscore enough the importance for people to get the COVID-19 vaccination. Again, these vaccinations are 94 to 95% efficacious in preventing you from being hospitalized and preventing death. You know, it is so critically important. And if you're a younger person and you're watching this program right now, and you may think that you have immortality, there are young people who are getting critically ill from COVID-19. And in addition to that, if you get it and you pass it on to an elderly parent or grandparent and they wind up dying from it, you will be very regretful that you did not get the COVID-19 vaccination. So I want to underscore the importance for people to get that. And also one final thing I'd like to mention, the Dr. Chris has done a quintessential job in terms of what she has been able to do with the implementation of immunizing so many people in the state of Arizona and getting these vaccines out there. So I encourage everyone to get a vaccination as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mollen, for that information. We definitely look forward to diving deeper into this conversation with you. And next, I would like to introduce Alan A.P. Powell, founder of Herozona Foundation. AP, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Alan A.P. Powell. I'm from native of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a United States Army veteran, Desert Storm era. From there, I actually was an entertainment executive at a company called The Firm, where I managed about 90% of Hollywood for most of my tenure in the entertainment business. Been a resident of Arizona for 15 years, started our foundation. We've worked hand in hand with the Greater Phoenix Urban League and all the stakeholders in the community. We just wanted to make sure that we did our part and making sure we was a message board to make sure that people got vaccinated. I was actually a recipient of being able to get COVID, and I understand the significance of getting the vaccination. I had it at a time where I did not know what it was, and it took over my whole body. So it's like Dr. Mullen was saying is, if you're a young person, please get vaccinated because you can pass it off to someone else, and you would really feel bad if something happened to someone in your family. But we've been on the front line here since the last 15 months. We did the largest COVID testing site in the United States at South Mountain Community College. We took the lead on that for the community because we wanted to make sure that we helped the underserved community. From there, we've been in vaccination mode with Quality Health, with Dr. Baker, Tomas, Leon, on making sure that we do our part, working hand in hand with Maricopa County, and also working with the state of Arizona with Dr. Crist and Governor Ducey. We've actually created a coalition between the Black Chamber, 100 Black men, 100 Black women, African-American clergy, pretty much everybody who wants to be a part of the community to make sure that they get the word out to those people who follow them, to make sure we get people vaccinated, make sure that we have a motto: protect yourself, protect your community, and protect the people that you love. So that's what we stand on being a part of this initiative. Thanks for having me today.
AP, it's a pleasure to have you. I can tell you, I've seen you out in the community, throughout the community, around the valley, hosting these events and other community service activities. We definitely appreciate the work you've done over the years.
Thank you so much for having me. And I do want to say that, Jerry, I appreciate you and Mr. Dean's leadership, and also want to mention Travis L. Williams' leadership. They've been very supportive in the community with the leadership of the Jarvis Reddick, Commander, and Dennis Prince. So I just want to thank them also.
Indeed. Last but not least, I would like to introduce the president of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals, Ashlee Atkins. Atkins, welcome to the broadcast.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Yes, as mentioned, I am the president of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals, a fellow Phoenician, and my daytime work, I am a diversity manager at ASU Enterprise Partners, where we serve as the parent organization of 5 nonprofit organizations, including Assure, who played a huge part in helping with the implementation of the ASU vaccination sites. I am just beyond happy to be here today to discuss this very important topic and, impacting our community and encouraging our young people to go out and do their part. I agree with Dr. Molin, and you'll hear throughout this broadcast of why I went and got vaccinated. And it's not about me. It's about protecting my elders, protecting my parents, and protecting my family around me. So I'm happy that I'm able to speak on behalf of the young professionals and the young people, and to help encourage them to go get vaccinated. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, President Atkins. I'm going to keep this, Ashlee's a friend, but I'll try my best to keep it as professional as possible. But no, Ashlee, we definitely appreciate your leadership, not only in Greater Phoenix area, but to the young people, and look forward to hearing you share that side of your story. So again, if you are tuning in, you are a part of this broadcast. If you have a question, feel free to drop it into the comments. You can do it now. We can do it a little later in the broadcast. It doesn't matter. We will make every effort to get all of your questions asked. So please feel encouraged, ask your question, and we are looking to get answers to each of those. We're going ahead and get started, and I'm going to start with Dr. Wooten. Very simply put, what are the differences between the COVID vaccines?
Well, thank you for the question. The COVID vaccines now, the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Johnson & Johnson, They're a different breed of vaccines. So for years and years and years, and I think this is where some of the anxiety about vaccinations have come from. People knew that we would get a particle. Back in the day, it was a live particle of a certain virus or a certain bacteria, and we would put it in a situation where the body would inject it, the body would develop the antigen antibody response, and then you would use that trial, if you would, to develop the vaccination that you were then going to give to the people. When you use a live attenuated vaccine, for instance, you cause significant secondary effects, a lot of side effects. And of course, people remember those things. Your grandmother, your mother, your father, they remember that. And so that's why a lot of people have an aversion to vaccines, whereby the COVID vaccines, the three I just mentioned, are messenger RNA vaccinations. And so they're different. They're actually lab produced, if you will. A messenger RNA is to mimic the spike or the attachment site of the COVID virus, and it makes the body respond to that particle via protein. And because of that, not to get too technical, because of that, your body, it gives you an overwhelming response, but then you get significant antibody coverage, antigen antibody coverage. In other words, you are immune at a much greater percentage wise than you would be otherwise. And that's why we're having such great success with these vaccines. So they're messenger RNA vaccines. They're not live attenuated vaccines or killed vaccines where we use the actual particle of the virus and put it in your body. This is, I think of it as a lab produced response. And that's why it's working so well. And that is why we as people who get the vaccine should be very comfortable that we're not going to have the side effects that we would otherwise. There are side effects, however, and I think that's one of the questions you're going to ask later. There are definitely side effects, but they're not like they would be otherwise. And that's one point I want to get across tonight.
Yes, Dr. Wooten, you almost jumped ahead of us. We are definitely looking to talk about the side effects, as well as a bunch of other information related to the vaccine. We will try and make every effort to get your questions answered, dispel any rumors, eliminate any myths, and just provide the hard, honest truth about the vaccine so you can make an informed decision and hopefully go get vaccinated and protect yourself as well as the community.
Terry, can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So again, and that was really great, Dr. Woon. It's a genetic material, that you're getting, and it actually triggers an immune response in your body to produce these antibodies. But what people have to understand is it doesn't affect your DNA. So I know a lot of females are worried about the potential with having a child, and is it going to affect my DNA, and is it going to affect the baby and things like that. It doesn't do that. It just stimulates and triggers an immune response in your body. And again, much different than, say, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is really more of a viral vector, similar to what we were doing with influenza and making that vaccine. So I just wanted to add that, but if that helps to explain it.
It does, Dr. Mollen, and thank you so much. And again, to all of our panelists, if you have input, there's some additional information that you would like to add to it, feel free to jump in. This is an open conversation. We will have our decorum, but we want to make sure that you are the experts, give you every opportunity to chime in on this subject and get the information out to those in the audience. But, and I actually just raised this question and leave it open to the floor, but we mentioned the Johnson & Johnson vaccine earlier. And recently, CDC issued guidance pausing the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, has subsequently communicated it is now safe to use. Can any one of you share with us the events and circumstances surrounding these decisions?
Well, when we had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the main issue that they were concerned about is something called thrombocytopenia. Thrombocytopenia is basically a decrease in platelets. So we kind of knew this from the start, and we were seeing this in some of the patients who basically developed COVID. But what happened with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine itself, it was actually causing that thrombocytopenia, much like, say, the COVID was. And it was causing what's called cerebral venous thrombosis. thrombosis, and so it was causing blood clots. It's particularly more common in women under the age of 50. So it was occurring basically between 18 to 45, 50-year-olds, and that was kind of the target market where people in that category, it was suggested that, wait, we need to pull this vaccine. So they stopped the distribution of the vaccine for a period of time, but then they started it again, after they realized it was just for this particular age category. So basically they backed off with it. It's an effective vaccine. It's been suggested that it's about 72% effective. When we talk about the effectiveness, even though some of the other vaccines, the Pfizer, the 94%, the Moderna vaccine, the 94.5%, all of these vaccines are going to prevent you from being hospitalized and dying. It's not necessarily going to prevent you overall from contracting COVID, because you still could get the vaccine and get COVID. But so that's the issue with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But basically, it's been cleared again for administration, and it's only one shot as opposed to 2 shots that you get with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines.
Now, Jerry, I wanted to jump in. Thank you, Art. Good to see you again, Art, by the way.
Yeah, good to see you too.
I wanted to jump in because I kind of left the Johnson & Johnson out initially when I spoke, but I just want to jump in on Johnson & Johnson and understand I believe it ended up being 8 cases out of 6.2 million cases of these blood clotting issues. And of course, we all understand that's such a low percentage, but it's still significant enough for those 8 individuals. So it was well worth pulling it down for a minute. But I also want to reiterate something. This is very, very important, because people ask me every day, well, is the shot going to prevent me from getting COVID? Is it going to prevent me from getting COVID? I'm going to give you an analogy. When we first started giving the varicella vaccine, chickenpox, people used to run into my office and say, why? I got chickenpox when I was a child. I did fine. All the kids I knew got chickenpox. We got chickenpox. We stayed home. I was fine. I had to teach them. It's not that because chickenpox as a varicella as a vaccine itself, just like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is not that effective overall compared to what most vaccines are. Most vaccines, we want 98 to 99% effectiveness, the DPTs and so forth. Varicella is only about 85 to 88%. And we thought that's just not good enough. But what it did do is prevented secondary effects of the illness that caused death. In chickenpox, it was brain encephalopathy and pneumonitis. So with COVID vaccine, yes, they're pretty effective. The Pfizer and the Moderna in the mid-90s, upper 90s, that's effective anyway. But really the thing that's so important with these vaccines and why everyone needs to get vaccinated is it prevents the secondary effects, which means to us, we physicians, it doesn't allow you to die. You may get it, you may still get COVID, but it's so mild, comparatively speaking. That is what we're trying to nail in, to make sure people understand. It is a great vaccine because it prevents death and hospitalizations. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Woon. That's a very important fact that you brought to light that, up until you said that, I was not aware of that point, that it's not necessarily the idea of preventing you from getting it, which is, a good value add, but more importantly, preventing you from dying from it. So we'll definitely like to hammer that point home. Dr. Mills, I believe you had some input on this.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Dr. Wooten is saying, just to put things in perspective, there were 8, I believe, people all over the world that had these blood clots, one of which were men, but the rest were women. And one thing that we think about is in the age group that we see that the women were affected, there are also other reasons why they may have gotten blood clots. Simply having estrogen in our system increases our risk of having blood clots. Being on any hormonal therapy might increase those risks. So when you look at the risk of 8 people in 8 million people, while it's significant for that individual, we know how to treat blood clots in your veins. We don't know how to cure COVID. So when we look at the fear of having a possible side effect versus the fear of the disease that we're treating, we have to put it in the perspective of all of the side effects that we have found, whether it's that we think that it may be related or it may not be related, but all of the correlations that we've seen with these vaccines are things that we can treat. We cannot treat COVID. If you have an anaphylactic allergic reaction, I can give you a shot of epinephrine and I can treat you. We know how to do that. We do not know how to treat COVID. So we have to keep it in perspective on that. And just remember too that it's still important to address the fact that we are trying to decrease your mortality for the virus. And we definitely were fine with Johnson & Johnson pulling it, because it's always good to be careful and to be cautious. That's what science is. We take in the information that we have and we make new decisions every day with what the body is telling us about the situation. And the fact that we paused for a minute doesn't mean that anything bad was happening. It means that we were very attentive. I say we, as the scientific community, was very attentive in paying attention to the day-to-day happenings of the vaccines and reacting to it in a very quick manner. And so that should actually be reassuring. It should show the public that we are paying attention, that we are looking to make sure that we pause if there's any kind of concern, and that we're also willing to proceed when we get more information. So I know sometimes it's disconcerting. Sometimes I tell patients, I swear we're not schizophrenic. We are just reacting in the moment to what is happening. And you should be kind of flexible with us, because that flexibility is how science is.
Exactly. Dr. Mills, another great point we just added, that while the side effects may not be pleasant to have them or to even hear about it or to be considered getting them, the science has been proven how to treat these side effects. So that's a great point. Again, another item that might be overlooked by those out in the community when they hear about the side effects. Yes, you have a side effect, but we know how to deal with that. So great point, and thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you see, Jerry, with this, that COVID-19 is ever changing. It's a medical conundrum. It's a puzzle. We don't even have all the pieces. We didn't have a blueprint to follow for this pandemic. We might have taken some information from the pandemic of 1918 and said, okay, this is what actually happens, but the reality of this is it's much different than that. We find that when we have, COVID-19, it's an issue that, keeps changing every day. The vaccines keep changing. When they make the vaccines up, we pretty much try to, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, because I think I had a phone or something. So it just keeps changing on us, and that's the major issue, and I think Dr. Mills made a great point, with the vaccines. This happens in a certain population. Again, women that are taking birth control pills, taking hormone therapy, and things like that. So there are a lot of different issues with it.
Got it. Thank you so much. AP, I believe you wanted to chime in on that as well.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. This is great information. Dr. Woon will understand this because he grew up in the inner city. But as everything changes, we have to re-educate the community. Because what's happening is, we have a freeze, but a lot of these people in the community are not political people. They're not medicine people. So when they see that there was a pause, we have to start all over again and re-educate. We already were having a problem getting people to come out to get 2 vaccinations. Then we went to 1 vaccination. The African American community was getting comfortable with the one shot with Johnson & Johnson. Then when you have the pause, now we have to start all over again. So all this messaging and all this information that we're getting, we have to figure out some kind of way to make these somewhat of a public service announcement to get it back out to the community at large. And Dr. Wooten and I talked about that when we was talking to Dr. Chris, is figuring out how we can get some of this stuff on some kind of PSA, because these are the people on this panel who people trust in the community. So we have to re-educate the community through some of this information that you are expressing on this panel. But how do we take this panel and put it back out into the community and make sure it expands the conversation through all those entities who are pushing this messaging?
Well, I think it was definitely a missed opportunity back in December and January on the whole public service announcement side of vaccine therapy, of making sure that we educated the community, making sure that there were so many myths that came out in November and December of last year that should have been pounced upon aggressively as far as educating the community before it was allowed to fester. And so I think that, I know myself and a lot of my colleagues spend a lot of our quote unquote free time trying to educate, but I think that we need to make sure that this information is readily accessible to people who may not have a lot of technology, they don't have social media, they don't have, we need to make sure that this information is widespread and that we are have our ears to the ground on all of the myths so that we can have that messaging ready for the public when it's time to address that. So I completely agree with that. And I know that's been a frustration of a lot of us physicians when we hear those myths in our office or at the hospital, and we wish that we could get the information out as wide as possible. So thank you, Greater Phoenix Urban League, for doing things like this, because this is one way that we can try to get that information out.
Got it. AP, I believe you want something else. You're going to final word.
I want to say we have to figure out some kind of way through the alliance that we have with the Greater Phoenix Urban League, the Black Chamber, 100 Black Men, all these organizations who people trust. We have to figure out a way to take this information and get it to these organizations so they can push you back out. Just like the other day, Robin Reed from the Black Chamber, he actually hooked me in with Lyft. Lyft is very supportive of wanting to make sure that they get people to the vaccination sites. They actually will promote it. We can actually get that inside of some of the lists. We have to re-educate the community, because even though that they've lifted the pause on the vaccination, the community is still at pause. So we have to figure out how we get the community back engaged too. Just because they say, hey, restart, that the community say, oh, I'm gonna hold on and wait a little bit. Everybody I talk to, I'm gonna wait and see how this plays out. When people are really forced to take the vaccination, when something happens to somebody close to them, they're like, oh, I might go get the vaccination. So I think some of the stuff that's being shared here today with Dr. Wooten, Dr. Mullen, Dr. Mills, yourself, and Ashlee, we have to figure out how we disseminate this information immediately back through any channels that we have to make sure that the people that follow us, and trust us to get them the right information in a timely manner.
And I think if we can get the vaccines into the hands of the family physicians, that's going to help a great deal, because they have the most accessibility to the patients. And they also can instill that confidence that the vaccine is safe and it is efficacious. So I think if we can do something to promote that, where the physicians are actually getting it into their offices, because many of the physicians that I have spoken with, they don't have it in their office. They don't even know how to get it, and I think we need to pass that message out, and kind of let that resonate throughout the community as well.
Got it. So great input on shared on behalf of everyone. Ashlee, we're going to get you into this conversation in just a moment. I know you're itching at the bit to share your expertise and your experience. So one thing that helped drive us to make the decision to talk about this topic today was how the vaccine disparity is impacting both the Black and brown communities in the state of Arizona. So currently, African Americans make up just 3% of the vaccine recipients, which is in line with the population ratio. Meanwhile, Hispanics make up just 15% of the vaccine recipients, while making up nearly twice that much in the population. So we'll start with Dr. Wooten. Outside of basic skepticism, what factors are contributing to this disparity?
Well, skepticism is the number one reason. People just don't trust anything anymore. And I have to say this, I was kind of remiss for not even saying this. AP, you're totally right. We kind of missed the ball. I told my colleagues back last March, I said, we in the African American and Hispanic Latino communities, we're in trouble. I actually set them down at a meeting and said, we're in trouble. They looked at me, what do you mean with COVID? It's not going to be that bad. We're being told this, we're being told that. I said, we're in trouble. Because all you need to do is give a group of people who are already skeptical, who already don't trust. And I believe most of my patients trust me. I've taken care of 40,000 families in 38 years. I think I have a lot of people who trust me, and they still were skeptical and still are. when you have so much misinformation being disseminated across the airways around this country by people, and I'm going to say it, in leadership, I'll just leave it at that. I won't become political tonight. We already have individuals who don't trust the government, don't trust CDC, don't believe what they say, look to us for that information. And then when we're hitting them with some of the same stuff, they go, how do I know that your information, Dr. Woon, that you're being given is accurate? How do we know that you're not being bamboozled? It's one of the hardest things we have to deal with. And we kind of allowed it by not jumping on some of this misinformation back last year. So now that I've said that, besides the mistrust and the distrust factor, what we also have to do is do our best as providers of healthcare to show one thing: sincerity. That we are sincere about our mission to keep people healthy. And what I do in my office, I actually take a lot of time. I know it's hard for some of you to believe that I talk a lot, and that was a joke, but I take time and I explain little anecdotal stories to people about the efficacy of vaccinations in my career and what I've seen over time, and how this is kind of the similar situation with the COVID vaccine, et cetera, because we got to reel them back in. I think AP, you mentioned that before. We got to reel them back in and make them trust us again, because unfortunately, the biggest issue I see is distrust.
Dr. Wu, and so I had the privilege of being on another forum that you participated in a few weeks back with Representative Stanton, Mayor Woods in Tempe, and you mentioned it was in regards to the timing of when the vaccine was released, or the speed in which it made it to the public. And I know that was one of the things that, and at least in my experience, that has been contributing to the skepticism of it came out too fast, or steps may have been skipped. So can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, and that's a really big issue, because people really feel that, we, meaning the medical community and scientists, just threw the vaccine out there real quick because we need to get something to appease people. But you need to understand, every step that is involved with the production of vaccines or medication, period, was done. It was just expedited. Well, how was it expedited? The federal government pumped so much money into these companies' pockets to allow them to expedite every step, 3 major steps to bring a vaccine out. The R&D, the production, everything else. See, usually when a drug company wants to produce a new drug, they gotta research and develop it. Then they have to test it, of course. But they can only do some things in certain steps. They can only do it because of money. They don't have the kind of money and the cash flow to do all the steps all at once. But this is the only time in history that the drug companies had the money given to them to do all of the steps in order expeditiously. And that's why they were able to do it within a year's time instead of the normal 3 to 5 years minimum to get to the same place. And that may be hard for some people to understand, not the people in this forum, but they were able to do what they did because they were given the money up front to do everything that they needed to do in order, instead of having to wait, get the studies done, then get refunded again, then wait, etc. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I want to take the opportunity and pull in President Atkins into discussion, because I know a few months ago when you had the opportunity to get the vaccine, you indeed did. So if I may ask you, we're talking about skepticism. If you can share with us, one, what prompted you to get the vaccine? And then number 2, what inspired you to share your story?
Absolutely. Thank you. So, yes, I received my first shot in February and my second shot of Pfizer back in March. And I thought it was just important as a community leader to show my experience and my why behind it. I know us as the younger generation, we live off of looking to see what other people are doing and seeing if it's safe. And then, it kind of catches on from there and a snowball effect on there. So I thought that it would be best for me to just post pictures that I'm doing it and the why behind it outside of your normal celebrities or other public figures that are out there. They're seeing somebody that's real, somebody that they can touch and talk to and ask any questions that they may have. My why behind it as well is that, as I mentioned earlier, it's bigger than me. It wasn't about me. It was about protecting those around me, my family, my mom, and like I wouldn't know what to do if anything were to happen to my mom or my close family and friends. I did lose an uncle early in December, and my aunt could have been right behind him, and thankfully she wasn't. And I just want to share that and know that, you know, we have to do our part. And no matter what, if you're scared or don't know the side effects, there's so much information out here. Listening to this platform with all the different doctors here, listening to other platforms, listening to just different things, they're all saying the same thing, and they wouldn't be putting things out there to hurt us or to anything for that. So that's what I'm doing. I want to encourage my friends and family to do their part as well, and to make sure, you know, that it's safe. And, you know, I had some side effects, and with me just posting out there that people were hitting me up in my DMs and saying, hey, you know, what were the side effects? Where can I get vaccinated? So it did work. Even if it was for, you know, 5 people, it did work. And I encourage my friends and family to do the same.
President Atkins, we thank you for your leadership, man. You know, I had a conversation with a few different folks that, you know, if you send a celebrity out there to communicate that message, there's going to be a sense of skepticism. Think about how much did they get paid, how much did they sell out for, et cetera, et cetera. When we can send out the average Jane or Joe out into the community that people know, respect, and share their story, I think it's a little bit more palatable for them to recognize the truth of what occurred. Dr. Mills, did you want to jump in on this as well?
Yeah, I think a couple of things just to add to what was already said is that not only were there was a lot of inconsistencies in messaging, you know, just like what AP is talking about. Last year, there was so much inconsistency in messaging on things that were basic science that actually weren't as ambiguous as you would think based on what you see on the news and everything like that. And us physicians were actually very, you know, we were trying to navigate what we already know about how viruses work with all of the different messaging that was coming out in the media, and that definitely made our jobs harder. So I agree with Dr. Wooten on that. I will say that one thing that people also need to remember is that the mRNA technology of Pfizer and Moderna, it did not just come, you know, wake up, you know, in a year. That technology has been around for 10 years, and we've been using it with other corona type viruses. And so that technology has been around for 10 years, and all that happened was that our brilliant scientists were able to repurpose that information and switch it to this corona type virus, which is the COVID-19 virus. So it's just really important to understand that not only was funding poured into this, which shows you that as a country, as a world, we have the ability to solve a lot of problems when we have the will to do so. So keep that in mind and hold your leaders accountable for that, because when we actually put our money where it needs to go, we can accomplish a lot. So keep that in mind, because there's scientists right now who wish they can have a grant to solve a lot of our world's problems that they just can't solve because they didn't get the money to do so. So the money was definitely there, but the technology was also there for about 10 years. And all we did was the scientists were given the free rein to then use that technology, the mRNA technology, and redirect it toward this virus. And that's why we were ready. The scientists were ready to go because of all the work that they've been doing for all these years. And I strongly, you know, want to make sure that people understand that, you know, last year I basically coined the term follow the science. In all of my posts and all of my talks, follow the science. Sometimes it's really hard to know, who do I trust? Which information, you know, do I go with? look deeply at the source of what you're reading. If I don't go to a mechanic to find out about how to do hair. Don't go to me for how to fix a car. Make sure that the source of the information is valid, and that also helps you to know where to navigate and who to trust. So, following the science is really good guideline for kind of sifting through all of the misinformation. Don't go off of rumors or about what a friend said or whatever. Make sure that the information comes from a reliable source. So hopefully that kind of touches on that question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mills. If President Duane is listening, we need to invest in the sound effects button, because I wish I can have echo or sound effects to chime in on that comment. Stop going to your mechanic to get advice on other things other than fixing your car. That is probably one of the largest detriments that we have, is that people are receiving the information,
right?
Who received the information from someone, who received it from someone, who received it from someone who was not a doctor, who's not qualified to cast an opinion on the subject. And, the reality is, you hear something enough times, you tend to believe it, it more, regardless. It could have all derived from the same source, but you heard it 30 times, it must be true. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to get you some sound effects on the next broadcast to help echo some of these comments.
Yeah.
AP, you had a question?
One thing I was going to mention, Jerry, is we ought to address the side effects of the vaccine, because everybody is concerned. If I get the shot, what happens? I've had friends who got the shot and they got very sick or whatever. Any side effects that people are getting from the vaccine, first off, you're not going to have an anaphylactic reaction. We were giving, again, thousands of shots at some of our clinics, and if anybody had a reaction, it might have been a vasovagal reaction. So you can get a vasovagal where a person, basically sees the syringe, or they get blood taken and they immediately pass out. That has nothing to do with the side effects of the vaccine. So some of the people who will get side effects from the vaccine, it depends upon their immune system. If they have an overreactive immune system, then they may have more of a side effect. Those side effects will last for 24 to 48 hours, and then they will quickly vanish. As quickly as they come on, they will vanish just as quickly. So you may get a sore arm from it. Yes, you probably will get a sore arm from it, but it's going to be mild, and you can take some Tylenol just to ameliorate that pain and discomfort that you're having. You may get a scratchy throat, you may get a headache, you may get a fever, you may get some of those side effects, even some stomach cramping, just for the first 24 to 48 hours after receiving that shot, but they'll go away. They're not going to be long-term effects. It's not going to be, if you were to get COVID, then you could have long-term effects 6-9 months later and become what they refer to as long haulers, people who have a persistent cough, who, have chest pain, have shortness of breath, have cardiac irregularities and things like that. So if you get the shot, you're not going to get COVID. You may get symptoms that resemble COVID, but they will quickly pass. And I think if we underscore the importance of that for people, that's going to perhaps alleviate some of those fears that they may have about getting the shots, And after you get the first shot, you'll have probably, again, depending upon which vaccine, you'll have between 70 to 85% protection. And then the second shot will bring you up to the other level of immunity, which may be the 90, 95%, depending, again, upon which vaccine you're getting. But
right,
I think that's an important message to get out.
Right, as Dr. Mills mentioned earlier, the side effects, we know how to treat those, whether you actually have COVID or not. Like the time, the energy, the expertise has been studied on that. But that's a great point to share, that the side effects are just side effects, not necessarily COVID. AP, I know you had a question for our panelists that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, this question is pretty much for you and Ashlee. My question is, how do we, with almost like a retrust campaign, how do we get the young professionals, the young generation involved? There's going to be some hesitancy with the older generation, but there's going to reverse in the household. When I was a kid growing up, everybody did pretty much what the parents did. Now, the parents pretty much follow what the kids are doing, because they're more know what's going on inside the community. Because a lot of parents have not come outside. A lot of parents have stayed in the house. Some people just said they're just going to kind of wait till this thing blows over, so they're living at home. So how do we give you some ammunition? Because there's several campaigns out there that we're involved with the state and also with the county, who's actually leading the charge for Herozona, which is like the One Initiative campaign. We also we have the Roll Up Your Sleeve campaign. But how do we create something for the young folks to get them give you all some ammunition, or get you something to go out to those young people and get them to get on board? How do we get your generation on board? What do you need from the panelists on this panel, from the Dr. Wootens and from the Dr. Mills, Dr. Mullins, the Dr. Crist? What do you need to help reassure your generation that we can give them some comfort that they need to get this? Because I went out the other day, just ride through to go get me some meat, and I can tell you, no disrespect to your generation, because they must, I mean, I know they're 22, 23, they're not being affected by it. Like if me and Dr. Wooten get it, I mean, they're just, they get it and go play ball and everything and say, hey, I'm not feeling good. But I can't do that, not at 53. So I'm trying to figure out, what do you need from these people? What do you need from the state? What do you need from the county to give you some ammunition to go back out? Because, I mean, like you were saying earlier, I mean, Chris Paul taking the vaccine don't do nothing for somebody that lives on 16th and Broadway. That don't mean nothing to somebody that lives right across the street from Dr. Wooten's clinic. Did somebody who played Larry Fitzgerald took it? That doesn't mean nothing. So what do we need to do to give you that ammunition? I'm just curious.
So I'll actually yield to President Atkins, because she shared some great ideas with me last week. So President Atkins, would you like to chime in?
Yes, and AP, I think doing just what you're doing now, but being a little bit more direct in our messaging and consistent messaging with that. I know with YP, we're encouraging our board members and our members. We will be starting a campaign as far as just testimonies on why they got vaccinated, and video campaigns for that. Also, just again, being more direct. What is it going to take? It's not about you. Who has it affected? Has it affected your parents? Has it affected your grandparents? Do you want to see them, to hug them and not lose them in the future? Also, are you wanting to travel more? Are you wanting to go to the movies or whatever it's important to the younger generation? We have to have that messaging around that, and knowing that you're not immune to all of this. You could, not catch the signs or get sick from it, but you can pass it on. And we need to make that direct and clear and be consistent in all of our messaging. And I think AP, with your campaigns with the CDC and the Arizona Health Department, have been doing a wonderful job on our social media, on just breaking it down and making it a little bit more tangible to our young people. But it is initially up to us young people to digest that and hitting home, for them overall, and why they should get the vaccine.
Right. Yeah, and it's just add a couple of 2 cents that it's delicate, because if you go overboard with the hey, I got the vaccine, then it just comes off as inauthentic. But I know that there's people who've gotten the vaccine who are not willing to share that they got the vaccine, either out of fear of being ostracized or, well, I guess ostracized would be the thing. Was I told someone I got the vaccine, and now everyone's telling me I'm gonna die next week, right? But it's difficult. But I think that the young leaders in the community who are pro-vaccine, who have gotten it, just need to take a more affirmative position and share that information and have those conversations more regularly. Because again, as Ashlee mentioned, she posted on social media, then people were sliding in her DMs asking her questions about it. Like, it's those little steps that will take to help, in my opinion, turn the tide. And AP, I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just want to say, maybe I would love to have a follow-up conversation to figure out how we can get you all out front on some of this stuff as representatives, along with some other young stakeholders, to create a message board. It's great that some of us are out front, but we need to figure out how to get you out front, along with some of your other young colleagues around the Valley, to make sure that they can get out front and share some of these experiences. Because I can tell you one thing's for sure, nobody wants to be responsible for passing this off. Maybe, it's kind of Dr. Wooten. You remember when we was growing up, Dr. Wooten, and Maybe we had to create some kind of a PSA or commercial. Remember when people used to tell people to stop smoking, they had to show you what happens to your lungs?
Right.
When you look at the commercial, man, I'm gonna quit smoking. Are you used to drink and drive or text and drive, and you see that video and you quit texting and driving? We got to figure out something like this with COVID, because I mean, there is the young generation, just no disrespect, they don't see it as that serious of a matter unless it touches home.
Yes.
Let me just add something. Let me, if I may, Jerry, let me add something to that. It kind of hit home with me just a few days ago. In my office on a Friday morning, I had a 15-year-old come in who had been diagnosed with COVID 4 months earlier. And most of the kids that I've seen diagnosed with COVID, as all of you know, they rarely get sick. If they get sick, they have very mild disease. I'm talking about younger children. This, of course, you know, it would be one of my patients. This young man went into cardiac failure. He's now seeing a cardiologist. He now has a myopathy. And I can go on and on and on,
right,
of course. So understand something. It's so personal to those of us and those proverbial front lines that are seeing patients every day, because when we see a young person like this that has heart disease now because of COVID-19, heart disease, he's on heart medication. It's sad. And the only thing I can do, like I told you all earlier, is to give anecdotal information. I will talk until I can talk no more. I will teach until I can teach no more. I thank God I'm given the opportunity to do it every day. But let me tell you something. I need all the foot soldiers possible. And what I'm trying to do is get the young people, AP, to take ownership and say, I'm going to go to my school and start a program for this and that. I'm going to go to my college and I'm going to do this and that. Because that's the only way you're going to get to them.
right. Yeah.
That's all. You got to get them to be in a position of power, so they can feel like I'm making a difference now, just like they do for all kinds of other things, in boys and girls clubs, and scouting, and so forth. So this has to be taken to that level, because it has been a tragedy. I call it America's and the world's greatest tragedy. That's what I call COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
I've told some of you how personal, how many friends I lost in 1 month, colleagues of mine 4 in 1 month.
Wow.
1 month.
Wow. Wow.
So I just want to end my portion and say that, because it's been very tough on me. It's been very tough on a lot of my colleagues. The ones I'm looking at this on the screen. It's been tough. You know, every day another tear falls, and I'm tired of crying.
Right.
We got to do something.
So for those out in the audience, we are coming up close on time. I know there were a couple of questions in the audience, and panelists, I know we shared a kind of hard cutoff point for this, but if we can just stick around and let's try to get as many of those questions from the audience answered, we would greatly appreciate it. We're not going to keep you too long. It's just a handful of questions. But before we get to those questions from the audience, I wanted to get back over to Dr. Mills. Again, you represent a unique population of our citizens. So if you can, I would yield the floor to you for a couple of moments to share your perspective on the COVID-19 vaccine, the patients that you serve.
I cannot stress enough what Dr. Wooten is saying is that your physicians are traumatized. Your physicians are living with the trauma of seeing things that we should not have to see. And even before COVID, we don't like to see people suffering from any illness that could have been prevented. We want to make sure that people are able to avoid preventable illnesses. As an obstetrician gynecologist, I will tell you that when we talk about the young population and the young generation, we are talking about my patients, right? Childbearing age, right? We have, from 14, 15 all the way to, 45 or so. These are the people that sometimes walk around feeling invincible, feeling like nothing can happen to them. Well, these are the patients that I have seen die from COVID. These are the patients that, as an obstetrician gynecologist, we are seeing much increase in pregnancy losses of all trimesters, miscarriages, heart diseases in pregnant patients. We have had to tell patients that their COVID has caused them to have heart failure and they need to not continue their pregnancy or else they're going to die because the pregnancy will now finish them off. Tough conversations are being had every day in the hospitals. So while people may be out there thinking that this doesn't affect them, please know two things. One is that nobody is unscathed. Nobody is unscathed. Kids, teenagers, young adults with mild disease are then coming up, as Dr. Wooten said, with heart failure, with other things that was way more devastating than just the week or two of not feeling well. And so the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, as well as the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, which is kind of what you can consider our high-risk pregnancy specialty, we put out a statement months ago saying that the effects of COVID are amplified in our pregnant population. We know that a pregnant person is more likely to have severe effects from COVID than a non-pregnant woman of the same age. And so we've already been pushing for months now for our pregnant women, women of childbearing age, women who are breastfeeding, to please be vaccinated. We know that there weren't very good studies initially on that population because unfortunately, some of our most vulnerable population, our women, are often overlooked when it comes to medical studies. And I hope that this also is going to change that mindset in the scientific community. But because of the fact that we had such good data on the trials, and we now have thousands of women, a lot of my colleagues who are breastfeeding and who are pregnant got the vaccine, and we all submitted our information. Everybody who's gotten the vaccine, pregnant or not, submitted our information to the CDC. And so now we have thousands of data on the safety of the vaccine in pregnancy. And we are just adamant, any chance that we can get, your obstetrician gynecologist wants you to get the vaccine. So please get the vaccine. We are tired of seeing things that we saw maybe once or twice a year. We're seeing sometimes 3 or 4 times a week in the hospital. And these aren't good things. These aren't, roses and, baby bottle things. These are devastating things in our community. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we shouldn't have to be personally affected by something to care about it, first of all. Let's get that empathy button, empathy muscle stronger. But just know that nobody is unscathed. Nobody can sit here and say that they're in a population that can be just fine. Anybody is able to have something really horrible happen from this disease. And so it's not changing your DNA. It's not going to cause infertility. There is no way that these vaccines have the ability to cause you to not be able to have a baby in the future. And that's another myth that when we heard about it, we were like, where did that even come from? Because just the way that it works, it's like that meme of, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. That's kind of what we hear about. We think a lot when we hear of these misconceptions. So just know what you should worry about with your fertility is being pregnant with COVID. Let's just say that. So fear the disease more than the treatment is, I think, what all of us are trying to say. And we will get down on our knees if I don't have to see another woman die from COVID or another pregnancy lost from COVID or another both at the same time. It would be a great day for me at work. So please get the vaccine.
Dr. Mills, and well, firstly to the audience, I told you Dr. Mills was passionate about this subject. She had a plethora of information. We are greatly appreciative for you for sharing that and the work that you're doing. Just being a doctor in and of itself is a task. You invest the time, money, energy, maybe even your social life to some degree, in order to give to the community, to give to others. But particularly in your area of expertise, women's health, their reproductive health, particularly, that's the next generation. Those are, when we talk about vulnerable populations, I don't know if an unborn infant, maybe that's the best terminology for it. I don't know if it could be any more vulnerable than that, right? So greatly thank you for your time, energy, and expertise, and definitely for sharing that information. And I agree with you. I hope our doctors, medical professionals do not have to continually experience this trauma unnecessarily. Now, I want to pause for a moment. I know we're coming right up on time. We got a couple of questions from the audience, so I would love to get maybe 2 or 3 questions answered. If your question does not get answered, please come back to the chat in a day or two. We'll make every effort to get that question answered. You just come back to your comment. You'll see your answer below. The first question is for Dr. Wooten from Lydia Arazola. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Dr. Wooten, when will your practice have the COVID-19 vaccine available to children between the ages of 12 and 15?
Well, I love this very, very, very well-versed person who just sent this question in, because just as of about 4 hours ago, I don't know if any of my colleagues saw that Pfizer has gotten approved for their vaccine to be given to 12 and 15-year-olds. I just want to say, in our office personally, we're not giving the vaccine in our office personally. We have connections to get the vaccine. The reason is real simple. In my personal private office, now I'm going to give you a caveat in a minute, so hold up, because we don't have the ability to store it appropriately in our office. We just don't have that. But I am in association with another very, very highly prized organization called Value de Sol. We're giving vaccines there. And I'm sure we're going to be giving the vaccines, since this is hot off the press, and I have not been in any meetings with them since I heard this on my way to my car this afternoon. But I'm sure we're going to be able to give those vaccines there. This is a big deal, because I just told you about my 15-year-old who's got his heart disease as a result of COVID. So I'm really excited to see this, and I think that we'll be able to offer that vaccine like shortly, as soon as we get the okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Woon. We have another question from Mark Overall. Has the state health department identified specific zip codes in the area where higher rates of the virus have spread in correlation with the median income of those zip codes? I will give our panelists a chance to jump in if they so choose, but this sounds like a question that Dr. Crist would be better equipped to answer. So Mark, please come back within a day or two. We'll see if Dr. Crist can answer it if our panelists aren't able to do so.
I don't have that data.
Got it. So yeah, we're going to take a hard pass on that. But Mark, we thank you for your question, and please feel free to tune back in into the thread, and we'll try to get your question answered. It's a great question to ask. We're going to take one more question from the audience. Just give me a moment to see if there's any. Let me try to just pick the best one we got, I guess. Here, I'm sorry, bear with me. This is happening in real time, right? So these kind of things happen unedited. There it goes. What about a joint effort with the FQHCs in Maricopa County? I believe that those are federally qualified healthcare centers. Am I right?
Yep, that is exactly it. And I think that would be huge. Lydia, I think that if all the FQHCs got together and had a joint effort to combine their resources and hit all of the now kids from 12 up, and I call 80-year-olds kids, I really think that would be super. Working with someone like AP, you and I need to sit down and talk like yesterday. And because you came up with some great ideas also with our Madam President, you need to be involved with that, because I think that if we get more and more people sharing like minds and putting it together, we'll be able to vaccinate so many more people so much more efficaciously. So I think a joint effort is what we need to do from all aspects, with an emphasis on the FQHCs that have the big, I call them the big houses. They got multiple properties, they have multiple employees that are eager to disseminate this vaccine. Believe me, I know, especially Value de Sol is really doing a great job with giving vaccines throughout the community. So we need a partner.
Got it. AP, I believe you had a question as well.
What do you think about, again, you and Dr. Mullen both probably can answer this, because I know you all give flu shots and back to school shots. So what about, I know Roosevelt wants to be really aggressive in South Phoenix on being a part of this. So maybe that's an outlet for those 12 to 15-year-olds to get Roosevelt involved in the school system side. I know Dr. Boyce, which you know, and the Phoenix Union will be a little bit younger, but I know Roosevelt really wants to get involved, or maybe there's some ways we can create with Val So or some of the partners that Dr. Mullen and some of the partners that you have, Dr. Wooten, that we can create maybe some remote spots, maybe wherever it is, and then actually have those students or those kids go to those remote spots, almost like getting ready to go back to school.
Well, I think that that's going to be a done deal. I think Roosevelt would be one of the first school districts I would hit. And I think that because I know who's listening to this talk now, because I see that little name come up twice, I think that's going to be something that's going to be much dialogue over the next couple of days, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. We are coming up on time. We have one more question from the audience, and I'll just try to indulge this one. Someone would like to know that cancer deaths and heart diseases went down for the first time in history. How do you explain that? Does anyone have any comments on the cancer deaths and heart disease going down for the first time in history?
I think the issues have been mostly because our focus has been on COVID. I'm not certain, that the actual number of deaths from cardiac disease as well as cancer have actually gone down. I think that COVID has certainly taken the spotlight, but as far as the number of deaths actually being reported, maybe it's a coefficient of some of the people actually dying from COVID as opposed to cancer or heart disease. So that may be the numbers that have decreased a little bit from that standpoint, but the numbers are still significant, with heart disease being number one, cancer being number two, COVID ranking way up there, probably somewhere between the 2 and the 3 spots. So I think it's just a coefficient of that more than anything else.
And also, we know that last year the diagnoses might have gone down, meaning new diagnoses of cancers went down because people didn't go to the doctor because we were on lockdown. People didn't go for their screening exams because of the lockdown, and so diagnosing new cancers decreased. Also, people who may have lived an extra few years with their cancer didn't make it because of COVID. So that also affects some of those numbers too. But I think if you look at the data, the incidences are still around what we would expect. We just know that for a time, COVID kind of jumped on top of it, but it's not that those numbers went down. It's just that COVID was more than that. So it's not that they went down, it's that COVID jumped ahead of it for a certain time and then it's evening back out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Molin and Dr. Mills, because these are some of the questions that surface, and if there isn't someone equipped to answer it, we look at this, we look at the statistic and say, oh, okay, heart deaths went down, and
right.
There must be something awry when just applying a little bit of logic, you can get a better understanding of what would contribute to the data being what it is. So.
Jerry, let me just add one last little bit to that. You know what type of deaths went down significantly over last year? This is a real simple answer. You know what deaths went down precipitously?
Car accident?
Influenza. Influenza. Why?
Mask.
I'll show you why.
Mask up.
Because the same thing that blocks that virus blocks the other virus. They're all
went down significantly. We had the easiest, I should say easiest, but the least amount of influenza deaths and illness in the last 40 years last year. That's because we were all masked up. There is something behind the science, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wooten. So we are right up on time. I will give our panelists, please, 60 seconds to give some final thoughts, and then we'll yield the floor to President George Dean to close out. Dr. Wooten, we'll start with you. Final thoughts.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all, and I really appreciate the panelists tonight. I think everybody understands the significance of our dilemma. We're not out of the woods. We're getting close. I really feel that we're getting close, but we have to continue to do our diligence. We need to get everyone vaccinated. We need to save lives. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I know these other physicians on this panel do what they do. Our ultimate goal is to save lives. And I will be available anytime, any place if I need to get that out in the community. And I appreciate, again, everybody's attention tonight. Thanks.
Thank you to the legend, Dr. Woon. We appreciate your time, energy, and expertise on the subject matter. Dr. Mills, final thoughts?
All I would say is what I've always said, which is to follow the science. If we are not willing to take in new information and be prepared that our mind is changed or our actions are changed based on that information, then talks like these are not going to be helpful. We have to get back to a mentality of, respecting science, respecting facts, differentiating the difference between facts and opinion, and following the science. And when we can actually start off on that same foot, I think that more conversations like this will be very beneficial. So, please follow the science. Please get your vaccine. Please take care of yourself and each other. We're not in a bubble. We're not on an island. Anything we do affects other people and vice versa. So we all need to care about what other people do and how we manage this pandemic. And I'd be happy to talk or answer any questions that I can at any time that I can. But yeah, thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mills. You've been a great addition to the broadcast today. Dr. Mollen, final thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, take the politics out of it. Everyone needs to get a shot. You're not only protecting yourself, you're protecting your loved ones, your family, and that's what's most important. Be a good citizen. Do something, again, for yourself, your family, and your country. And God bless America.
Thank you, Dr. Mollen. AP, final thoughts?
I would just say be proactive, not reactive. Protect yourself, your family, and your community. And if you really care about somebody and you really love the people around you, get vaccinated because this thing is real.
Thank you, AP. And President Atkins, would you like to give final thoughts?
Yes. Just do your research from reputable sources. Talk to those who have gotten vaccinated to be prepared for any anticipated side effects, as the doctors stated on this panel, which only lasts a few days and will go away after that. Also, just echoed throughout this entire program, think beyond yourself. Us as young people may not be affected, but we can spread it. Think of those who you love. Think of those things that you'll get to do to return back to normal. This is the fastest and safest way to get there. And listen to this panel of doctors, like just me listening to their stories, their patient stories and the trauma that they're going through. If that doesn't encourage you, I don't know what will. And we have to do our part. We have to get vaccinated and we have to protect those around us.
Thank you so much, President Atkins. I just want to share that the Greater Phoenix Urban League is participating in a vaccine drive May 14th, and the information is now displayed on your screen. It's at the Cartwright School District in Maricopa County. We'll host a COVID-19 vaccine fair on May 14th at Mark T. Atkins School on 4315 North Maryville Parkway. That message is from our Chief Operating Officer, Natalie Alvarez, a legend here at the Greater Phoenix Urban League. So with that being said, I would like to thank our panelists once again for your time, attention, energy, and expertise to the subject matter. We hope everyone out in the audience has been able to get their questions answered. If not, continue dropping your questions in the comments. We will make every effort to get those questions answered by our experts, whether today, tomorrow, or the next couple of days. So please, continue asking your questions, continue to listen to the experts, continue to not listen to the non-experts who are sharing information that they may not simply be equipped to provide. Do your research, trust your sources, verify your resources, and I'll leave it there. Without any further ado, I would like to reintroduce the president and the CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, President George Dean.
Thank you, Jerry. For the past 76 years, the Greater Phoenix Urban League has been providing services to residents of the Valley of the Sun. And in those years, we have served thousands, and we have never given you any bad information. The reason that we are telling you tonight about the vaccine disparity and the importance of being vaccinated, because we believe very strongly that everybody needs to get vaccinated as soon as they possibly can. I have been vaccinated. My wife has been vaccinated, my daughter, my son-in-law, all the family, my brothers, my sisters, everybody has been vaccinated. So we know that vaccination, the hesitancy needs to go away, and find a way to get vaccinated. Take advantage of that and get vaccinated just as soon as you possibly can. It is so very, very important. And with that, I want to give a special thanks to our panelists this evening, Dr. Wooten, Dr. Mollen, Dr. Mills, AP, and Ashlee Atkins, and Dr. Chris Crist. All of you have done a wonderful job, and I'm sure that the audience that saw this and will see it in the future will know that you've given out some very valid information, and we are very much appreciative of the fact that you have given your time and energy to make this happen. So with that, I would say good night, and we'll see you next month on the Meet the Leaders Forum.